Hey guys, our guest today is a true American success story, rising above incredible odds and adversity to become a highly successful entrepreneur, business owner, and self-made multi-millionaire by age 33. She faced numerous tragedies as a toddler and young adult and later channeled her energy into a strong philanthropic spirit and continues to serve on many board of directors, offering wise leadership, which has resulted in numerous community and organizational benefits. Knowing firsthand the hopes and desires that fuel every woman, the hunger for a good family life, loving relationships, material security, and most of all, a deep down sense of self-worth, that has guided her to a career as a motivational speaker, mentor, and author with the goal of helping other women create the life of their dreams. She is living proof that an ordinary person can create an extraordinary life. Welcome to the show, Donna Cornell.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much. I listened to that and I go, I did that? Yeah,
I did all that. And here's the thing, guys, if you're tuning in, I have Donna right here. And I had to narrow that down just because I knew I'd be out of breath and I wanted to have energy for the rest of this interview. But really, there's so much more that we're going to kind of color in your, and a lot of it is difficult to talk about because Donna has had a tremendous life of both amazing success and also some really difficult, dark, call it adversity. And that's really what makes her who she is. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And you guys can tune into Donna. You can check out her incredible motivational speaking as well. DonnaCornell.com. It's Cornell. She's on LinkedIn and also Facebook. You just type in, I am Donna Cornell, and you'll find her right there. And here's what I'd like to do. We talked in that intro about your backstory, and that's really what I'd like to do is kind of start there, talk about the adversity, because those who tune into the show, they have other things that are going on themselves, and we can really learn from you and your story.
Well, I like to say that I'm an ordinary woman who was faced with extraordinary challenges, and if I can do it, anybody can do it, male and or female. When I was 18 months old, I was scarred in a chemical accident. It happened at our house, but it was a chemical accident, and I had scars, face, legs, arms, feet. And I still carry a lot of those with me today. Mm-hmm. And that's why I always have my hair like this on my face, because it's like, oh, you could see them. And then life settled down. And unfortunately, when I was 14, it dealt a really big tragedy. My mother died. I was 14, and my sister was 3, and the other sister was 11 months old. So I became a surrogate parent, and it seemed to me at that time that all the doors to success and happiness were closed. Couldn't go to the colleges I wanted. I had to change curriculum and take care of my sisters. Mm-hmm. So it was a tough beginning.
How do you feel that shaped you as a young adult? Obviously, you had to grow up early, 14 years old. You're taking care of a 3 and an 11-month-old. Was your dad around at that point? Can you tell us about that?
My dad was, but picture a 35-year-old man of that age and that heritage, one of 10 Italian children, mm-hmm. who all of a sudden is left with this burden, lost the love of his life and has these 3 children. It deterred him from being able to step in and perhaps be the father that you see on TV. He just couldn't.
Right.
Remarkable man, but he just couldn't.
He was probably working a lot to take care of 3 children as well, right?
Yeah, and he was an on-the-road salesman, so that made it even traveling salesman. So it made it even more challenging for the at-home environment.
So your mid-teenage years, early teenage, really, 14 years old is early teen years. You spent a lot of time at home alone with your 2 younger sisters.
I didn't get to go to any of the kinds of schools that I wanted to, or any of the kinds of events at schools. Didn't go to football games. I didn't go to any of those things.
Right.
It really impacted my socialization, which then impacted my self-esteem. I didn't have the opportunity to grow as a teenage girl. The whole, its impact is lifelong, but especially at that age. especially at that age.
What age would you say it was where you started to feel like you were breaking away from that and be able, starting to be able to create your own destiny?
It took a long time. I'm sorry. It took a long time. I got married right away, thinking that Prince Charming, was going to make me happy, but nobody could make me happy. The pain was inside. How was I going to get happiness? And to believe in yourself, I think the only thing that happened was when the worst thing that can happen to you happens at 14.
Mm-hmm.
Then entrepreneurship, being in business, none of that really is as frightening as it might be to somebody else.
Right.
So there's that. But I think that I got married and I got divorced and, I was unhappy. I had a child of my own. It was a tough, long journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, something that I want to talk about too, there's two things. I heard another entrepreneur on a podcast I was listening to yesterday. He lost his son when he was only 1 day old. So him and his wife were having a hard time getting pregnant. They get pregnant and they lost their baby at 1 day old. He said that crushing feeling that he still has, and this was years ago, he has a hard time putting words to. He said, I'm an entrepreneur now. On a tough day as an entrepreneur, nothing adds up to that. I mean, so he goes like, I can get through almost anything today because of dealing with some of the crazy, hardships. And so it sounds like you're able to channel some of those difficult, dark times and say, look, you know what? A bad month in sales isn't going to end. It isn't going to be the end of me. Like, I'm going to get through this. I can get through. And so I want to just stay on that because I'd like you to share how you talked about for years you were chasing happiness. I know you had a marriage that didn't work out as well. A lot of people, I was divorced myself. I know a lot of times people could be chasing what they think is the right thing or chasing, as you say, kind of like Prince Charming. Speak to our audience that feels like, maybe they're always seeking happiness and having a hard time finding it within. And what would you tell that person?
Well, I happen to have been married to a really great guy, but it was me. I was looking for him to work miracles, and there were no miracles at that time. I needed to get it within myself. I needed to have confidence in my own ability, my own decisions. And I think that my message to anybody who's perhaps struggling with personal insecurities, unhappiness and so forth is, there's a couple sayings I say. One is, you are what you think you are. If you think you're a loser, you're going to be a loser. If you think that you can do that and try and tackle that, you can. And failure's not such a bad thing. It means you're getting closer to success. I failed. I failed a lot too. I made some terrible business mistakes because I didn't have the business acumen.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I got through them because I would say, okay, I learned from that. What did I learn? And what should I do next? And how can this impact the rest of my life?
Yeah. And you launched your first business. It was 1978. It's called Career Directions, right? I want you to tell us more about that. I know it became successful. You had 8 offices in 4 states, right? How did that idea come about? And can you share some of the lessons you learned as a young entrepreneur, first timer? I have that experience too. Like, what does that look like if someone who's listening is saying, they're kind of worried about starting a business? How can we encourage them to do it, but also share your story of challenges there?
Okay. That's I
a
haven't
lot.
told this story to many. No, I haven't told this story to many people. This is great. It's like the first time. I was working for a search firm, an employment agency. I was just administrative level. And the IRS was coming in to chattel everything and take over the business because the prior owner didn't pay taxes and do what he was supposed to do. And I called somebody I knew. I had no money. I called somebody I knew and I said, this business should work. This could be a good business. I think it just needed somebody to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And through a variety of financial loans and machinations and deals with the IRS for what seemed like a lifetime, I ended up sitting in the main office and I had one employee, Kathy, and that was it. And from there, I just continued to try new things, to experiment, to add new employees. I found as an entrepreneur, if you want to grow a business, treat your employees right. Treat them with respect, treat them right, and they'll do a lot for you. The other experiences or things that I learned as an entrepreneur starting out was you need a good banker and you need a good accountant and you need somebody to give you advice, a mentor. It was very hard for me to find a mentor. I was a female in a 300,000 population county, and all the mentors were guys on the golf course.
Right. Yeah, maybe would you feel like, I mean, we're talking late 80s or I'm sorry, late
Right.
70s, early 80s.
Not the early 80s, in the 80s.
Yeah, it's a different world today, but at the
It
same
is.
time, do you feel, and then just speaking candidly, that's why I wanted you on the show, is to really open up, and I appreciate you doing that. So they were do you feel that you weren't being taken as seriously as you wanted to be at that point?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, eventually I was the first woman president of the Chamber of Commerce, the first woman on this bank board, the first woman. But you know what? I have developed a mindset that I wasn't going to let them treat me like a woman or think like a woman. If they were at a meeting and they were speaking, the guys in the boardroom, this male dominated boardroom, I spoke up just like they did. Why should I be intimidated? Some were smarter than me and had more knowledge, and some weren't.
You know what I'm thinking right here, right? So at 14 years old, you grew up and became a woman taking care of 2 children, your sisters. I'm not a doctor here or psychologist, but it feels like what you needed to learn about the hardships and taking care of people in life and making decisions on your own in that boardroom, a couple guys sitting around the table, maybe puffing their chests out. You weren't afraid to speak your mind because you figured out life by yourself, and you're in the same boardroom they're in. So you're like, I'm not intimidated by you, right?
I'm here, just like you're here. The other thing I will say, though, is I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading and research. I did the psychological, what's wrong with my head? Why am I not, being able to do what I want to do? Why am I so, fearful? I did a lot of reading about business environments, every magazine, every publication. That's what I did at night, put the kids to bed, and then, sit down and read for hours. Underline things, it was hard paper. Now I still do the same thing, by the way. I still research. They call me the queen of research.
I like to take notes and write down on a sheet of paper.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Me too.
What are some of your favorite books that you feel like our audience can benefit from checking out?
The first book I read, which has been panned and has had different kinds of reviews, was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. Now, I know it sounds hokey, and I do, but that was the very first one that made me take a look at maybe the answers inside of me. And so that was the first one. Since then, there have been so many. I mean, everything from, Steve Covey's The 7 Habits to all of them. Every book will give you something if you take the time to read it and absorb it and and welcome the advice, not be resistant, but welcome the advice. Hey, this guy or gal has something to say.
The other thing too is I love to read as well. So I'm glad you shared that. I have 7 Habits. I just need to read it. It's in queue. I have other books I need to read before it. Think and Grow Rich is a classic that I love. I highlight it and reread that book over and over. It's like a business Bible, in my opinion. Power of Positive Thinking I heard of by Norman, but I don't own it. So that's what I'm going to add to my collection. But here's what I want to say. Anyone who's listening right now, maybe you go back and you read some of these books. I mean, even Think and Grow Rich is a 100-year-old book, right? You may not agree or feel every single page is relevant, although I do feel a lot of it still 100 years later is relevant. My point is, don't throw the whole thing out if you don't agree with one chapter. So like what Donna just said, guys, is she learned from these things and takes a little bit, and then she collectively put how she's going to apply it to her life. These interviews I do for Mic'd Up is take what you learn from all my guests, take little things, apply it to your own life. Don't discredit something if maybe one piece of information doesn't feel or sound right or fit your narrative. Like, take it, use it, and be better for it.
That's great advice. You're right. And as I said, I used to use hard copy books. I still print things out from that. I do research. I underline, I highlight. I have 2-color highlighters, yellow for that's interesting and pink for pay attention. I swear it's
awesome.
hokey again, but it works.
It's not hokey. I think it's great. You have a system, right?
Right. I do.
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for people who feels stuck in a bad relationship. You mentioned that, kind of going through some rough relationships. Maybe they've also been mourning death. You've dealt with that, and constant anxiety. So I mean, many people are either at one job, or if it's an entrepreneurship, maybe they're still holding on to their previous job and they're starting to branch into their own thing. And we all have these different layers of anxiety and stress. And do you have anything that you found that really helped you get through that?
Well, let's take the job piece first, if we could, because I'm a certified career counselor. I'm also a life coach, but most of my experience has been in the career counseling end. So let's take the job thing first. Let's
Mhm.
say you're in a position and you don't like it, you're unhappy. The first thing you need to do is find out why. The number one reason people change jobs is because they're not appreciated. It's not about money, it's they're not appreciated. So, do you feel a lack of appreciation? Do you hate the job content? Are your duties actually something that is very making you very unhappy? You need to figure out why you're unhappy. Then you can map out a plan. Do you need to
Mhm.
change? Do you need to speak up? Do you need to do what do you need to do? But you can't just say, I'm unhappy at work. Why? What's making you unhappy?
So I'll speak for myself because I think it can help us in conversation here. Is I was in a comfortable corporate position working for an organization I did respect. I was a top performer in sales, and also as a leader, I was a store manager for a high ticket sales company and doing very well. But once I got divorced that year, right, I started to
Yes.
question my fulfillment and why I was doing what I was doing. I knew I was doing it as a father and as a husband to come and provide for the family. I also enjoyed helping my clients out, but I had a question of, hey, if I'm going to do this for 30 to 40 more years, is this what I feel the universe and God collectively put me on this planet to do? And it was a fulfillment issue I had with myself where I felt like I had other talents and skills and things like that. So that's what caused me to want to branch into my entrepreneurship, is go and do things that were interesting to me that I wanted to serve people. So can you kind of talk through?
Well, I
Um,
want to give you a word of caution. I'm going to interrupt you right now. I want to give your
Please do.
listeners and viewers a word of caution. There's this old saying about do something you like. That would be nice, but it's not realistic. Okay. Do something that brings you what you called, the job satisfaction, makes you feel good, fulfillment, but it has to be realistic. It has to be something that can generate enough income for whatever your needs are, for whatever your family responsibilities are.
Mhm.
Otherwise, people can go pursuing. I mean, I'd love to just live on the beach and give out the beach towels, but that wasn't real. That no, really, what a great job, huh? But that wasn't realistic when I had three children of my own to support on my own. So I
Right.
needed to find something that I liked and felt the satisfaction, but could give me enough financial reward that I could put food on the table.
Yeah. So again, and I'm actually glad that you did add that, because what I mean, and I didn't mean to maybe be too vague about it, but the fulfillment was in the work that I'm doing to serve my audience, whether it's on a podcast or whether my audience is clients. So to me, it's through service what we can do. You'll hear me say this. You probably noticed it. My emails is be great and be grateful, right? So like, what can we be great in? Everyone has their own kind of, I call it superpowers. So how can you encourage, again, our audience listening in? And they can be at any level of entrepreneurship. They could be an athlete who's just going to pursue greatness at that particular sport that they're in. What would you encourage people to do as far as to go after, again, not just being the towel girl at the pool or towel boy or whatever, but how do you tie the two together? Something you're passionate about that you want to serve and actually turn it into a business model.
Well, it's interesting. I wrote a book, and it's about job searching in pandemic times. And I just wrote it, obviously, based upon the title. And in the book, before I get into this resume creation or anything, I have an entire section about employment, what you want to do, what you should do, how you should be doing it. Is it time to be an entrepreneur? And why do you want to be an entrepreneur? And you know what that means? Are you living in a fantasy that you think it just means that you're going to make a lot of money? It takes thought. It's not a casual kind of thing. If
Absolutely.
anybody's watching or listening, I tell them you need to invest some time. It takes time to choose the correct career path.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And who would you say, I mean, you mentioned a couple books, but who are the biggest, would you say, positive influences in your life who helped you learn some of these key things that you're now educating people through your motivational speaking and your career counseling?
I learned a lot from individuals rather than big power names. I
Sure.
learned I learned from an individual who I was career counseling, and he had, like you, the big corporate job with probably, I don't know if you had the corner window. He had the corner window. Okay.
I didn't have a
And
corner window. I was
okay.
inside a
Oh, I'm
store.
sorry. Well, he had the big corner window, and he had two boys, twin boys, greatest kids, cutest kids, and they went into Little League. And each night he would come home and they would tell him about the games with tears in their eyes because daddy wasn't there. He thought it through. He did a whole evaluation. We worked through. He made a conscious decision as to what his priority was. And in that case, his priority was being a participating dad. I learned a lot from that because I had three children at home, um, no husband at the time, and I had to make sure that I changed my work schedule so that we had dinner together, and I had to work late into the night rather than coming home. Here's something quick. Mom's going to go up to the office and work. No, no, no. So you learn from people with whom you interact, sometimes more than the so-called expert on the screen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's exactly what I mean. I mean, positive influences could come from parents, it could come from friends, mentors, a
Mhm.
friend that you met in the Chamber of Commerce that you were in, anything,
Right.
right? So you talked a little bit about your family, and that's going to lead me into my next question. You do have a beautiful family, your husband, Jeffrey, and three
Right.
children, right? Four children.
Yeah. Four children. Uh-huh.
Take a moment.
Nine grandchildren and a dog that drives me crazy. He's in the
Please.
crate now because he'd be barking for attention.
So tell me, what does family mean to you? I know family, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. We want to help women, just looking back on it, right? Every woman, the hunger for a good family life. So it sounds like
I
you have that
I
now.
have an answer. My approach to family was to raise them, build them, children and grandchildren, to be competent, capable, because those two things equal confidence. If you
Mm,
can empower your child to know that they can do, that they're confident, that they can do anything, those are what we used as our philosophy for raising our children, and they are, and it's good.
guys, don't let that just pass you by. Competent and say it again. Competent and
Capable is
capable equals confidence.
yes,
That is a huge takeaway for me right here.
right,
I have a 5-year-old daughter, beautiful daughter, Isabel, and I started this thing where she loves playing with toys right now. She's just so focused on toys. And
right,
I try to teach her lessons through the things that we do, like with her toys, because that's when she's listening and her mind is free and she's actually paying attention to scenarios. So
right.
I notice her saying, I can't do things a lot, like, oh, I can't do that, or can't ride my bike because she was a little scared. So she just say, I can't do it, right? Before she tried. You got to try at least 3 times on anything before you're going to feel a little bit of confidence, right? And so I do little things like the little guy on the slide on her toys was scared about going down the slide, but then he tried it once, and then his friend went down a few times, and he saw him do it, so he tried it a second time, and then by the fifth time, I'm like, do you see how he's like going backwards? His eyes are closed, and she just sees like the confidence playing with her toys, and then she starts.
Beautiful.
And then I also do this little steering wheel game where one person is climbing and then they say halfway through, they say, no, I can't. And they end up back at the bottom. And the yes, I can person keeps climbing without looking down. And she loves it. She asks me, Daddy, do the yes, I can thing. But, at 5, she's actually picking up on what it means. It's not,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a great philosophy you're doing, and that's the way to keep doing it. It's just keep doing that. It's
yeah.
wonderful.
And she still has her moments of struggling. And I realize, like, I'm being careful. I want her to be a kid, but I'm learning things now. I'm 34 years old that I didn't necessarily learn from friends or family or parents when I was 5. So I
Right.
just feel like, I have the ability to teach her some pretty cool things that I learned late in life that I wish I was learning when I was 5.
Yeah, that's
So,
great. Sounds like you're doing a really good job.
yeah.
Philosophy, Donna philosophy.
There you go. I love that. And so you have, how many grandchildren now?
I have 9 grandchildren, and geography sometimes inhibits the ability to get together, but we push real hard because we all recognize the need for, family ties. We do Zoom. We're big on the holidays, getting together, any excuse really. Yeah, I feel very blessed. I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
I feel as though God kind of gave me a little, a start that was challenging. It really challenged me, but I got through it. And I'm grateful for what I have. You used the word grateful. I am so grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
Really.
I like to do this towards the end of the episode, but since we're on the topic of gratitude, I like to start every day in gratitude and end every day in gratitude. And some people have a actual physical journal for gratitude. What are 3 things that you're most grateful for?
A, that I woke up today.
Yeah.
That happens after you hit 60. Oh, I woke up. It's going to be a good day. I'm joking. Okay. I'm really joking, but not really. And there's part of me. I'm grateful that the people who I love the most, my family, my friends, my spouse, all appear to be in good health, both physical and mental. That means a great deal. I've been involved with families and people who are going through difficult times in that way. Okay.
Yeah.
The material things aren't so important other than the fact that it gives you freedom. I've had great financial success. She used the term multi-millionaire. Yeah, I did that. But I did that with a strong drive that I wanted my children to have choices. See, I didn't have choices. Mine were all taken away when my mom died. So I wanted my children to be able to go to the college of their choice, to pursue whatever career they wanted. I didn't want them to have financial burdens. So I worked really hard on having financial success, financial stability, because I had also been without financial stability. I was hungry. When we were times we were hungry. So I think those are a couple things. And you asked me for a third thing.
Yeah.
And I guess as I start this second part of my career, this authorship and this further emphasis on mentoring and sold off the corporate business, I'm grateful for the chance to help other people because it feels good. You talked about that fulfillment.
Service.
That's what I have.
Service above self. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, and I love that. And I think asking that question allows someone to open up on some of the things that are important in their heart. And then you get to know more about someone. And the one thing that you just talked about was, a lot of people talk about those material items and they get have such a bad reputation of too many people focusing on them. But really what I feel financial freedom is, and that's one of my big items that I'm looking to achieve. And I have not, I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm a year older than you were when you hit that level of success. Everyone has their own, it's like popcorn. Everyone pops at different times. But I want to talk about the material thing because to me, what money or quote unquote financial success is access. Everything in the world has a dollar amount access. If you want to take your 9 grandkids for Easter break once the pandemic's over to Disney World, and you can do that because financially you're able to. It's simply access. It's not the material like, hey, we're going to have this ridiculous vacation. It's just the happiness factor that you get to spend with your grandkids. It would be no different if you took them to the movies all together as a big group. You'd have a huge fun day. That cost would be, now with movie tickets, probably $100, but it's definitely not going to be 3,500. Okay. So my point is like, a lot of people give me a hard time when I do talk about some of the material things, but it's not about the item. It's about the access.
Financial success begins with financial stability. If you're worried about money all the time, if you can't feed the kids, if you don't have a babysitter and you can't afford a babysitter, then it's hard to get to the office for that meeting or it's hard to work. It's difficult. So financial success begins with financial stability. Then you take it to the next level, the true level of financial success. That gives you choices, lots of choices. Each of our children, when they got a new home, we were able to help them and give them each certain amount of money to say, here, let's ease that mortgage payment for you. Let's make it a little easier. Does it make you happy? You're happier with it than without it. I have to admit, it's nicer to have it than to not have it. I've been in both places. And then the other thing is sometimes as an entrepreneur can go up and down. I mean, success was not a straight line. It went up and up and up. And then, whoops, what happened here? Hello. Right, exactly. Like,
right. Oh,
hey.
And you said the word hunger. And I know you actually meant like physical hunger.
I did. Yes, I did.
But also a mentor of mine mentioned There's actually just a podcast that I listen to and get mentorship through, learning from him and his guests. Talks about you see a lot of people who are kind of grow up in the middle class and kind of struggle to break through it because they're pretty comfortable. You have food on the table. You pretty much can get into a decent school with your, help from your parents. Where you see a lot of people who don't have that and have some crazy stories like what you experienced
Right.
in either physical hunger, where they're just not, being provided food because it's not there, resources, or someone living on the streets or going through maybe even a situation with drugs. You see someone who's like on rock bottom rebuild themselves up, and then once they start to figure it out, they're more unstoppable than someone who's kind of got it pretty much okay, because it's like you can't teach that fight in the dog kind of a thing, that Rocky mentality of like,
Right.
when you're getting your face punched in, you still get up off the mat. And someone who's like been kind of beat up over the years, they're just so much tougher.
But I don't think it's a key to successful entrepreneurship. I don't
Okay.
mean to counter. I think it helps a great deal because we have taken it on the chin. And to repeat myself, when the worst thing happened to me, happened at age 14. What's a business failure? What's a business plummeting? What's losing an account? What's sales not being? It doesn't matter as
Mhm.
much. However, I know people who have had a very charmed life, and I admit to sometimes being a little bit envious. They've
Sure.
had it so easy, but they also can turn out to be successful entrepreneurs. It's
Yeah.
in the heart, it's the spirit. I want to do this. And it's also, I really believe in how they interact with other people. I don't think you can be as successful an entrepreneur as you may want to be. Steve Jobs said it at the end. He attained so much, but he didn't always treat people as well as he should have. I think
Mhm.
that's the reckoning that comes later on in life. But entrepreneurship is a wonderful way to go. It really tests your abilities and your limits and your
Mhm.
creativity. And you step into waters you didn't even know were puddles. I've loved my business life, and I love now that I'm able to help other people. It just feels really good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
absolutely. I appreciate it. And so you have a book, Job Searching During the Pandemic. Is that something that's available on Amazon?
Job Searching in Pandemic Times is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Amazon has it also in Kindle form. I recommend the not hard copy, it's a paperback because there's lots of tests in the back that need to be completed.
Cool.
Okay, I had another book, and that book, the first book that came out was um, Conquering the Life Balance Hoax, My Journey from Despair to Millionaire. And that got off to a great start. We had in February of this year a great kickoff. And then, of course, the market died for personal book signings and all of those kinds
Yeah.
of things. And that's when I decided I have all this career knowledge. Let's put it in a form to help other people.
Let's talk about that quick. It's actually a question I didn't have for today, and I'd love to talk about it because it's so important. Life balance as a parent, as a spouse, as a business leader, we're pulled in so many different directions. And I like that you call it the hoax. So elaborate on that.
Okay, it's a whole book, but to give you just a few minutes, I don't believe you can have life balance, or I don't believe that chasing it is the right place to put your energies. I think for me to think that every night I could get to the gym to try to be a size 2 like the girl down the street wasn't going to happen. There were times that I forgot cupcake day at school. I mean, what could I do? I could make myself feel like a horrible mother, or I could come up with a creative remedy, which was the following Friday having special kind of cookies. You have to accept the fact that life is filled with challenges and that you're not always going to be perfect, whether it's in work, your personal life, or your relationships. It's particularly difficult in your relationships. So
Mhm.
that's what I did in my book. I broke it down into your work life, your personal life, and your relationship life, and why you can't have balance and what you need to do in order to try to have a life that you can manage. Basically, how can you live well and be successful in an unbalanced life? It's possible because I did it.
Right. And we talk about foundations too. And so you feel that the foundation, if an entrepreneur is listening to this, or just anybody in business, it could be a salesperson as well,
Mhm.
who's out there hunting like your dad did for many years as an outside salesperson. Um, and they're trying to balance that, but have a foundation at the home front. Do you feel that the foundation the relationships need to be built first, so then you can be a great salesperson for after that or on top of that? or a business person? Or do you feel that, having your business together, then you can, is it the chicken or the egg, or is it kind of collective?
We are constantly evolving and changing, both as humans and as business owners or employees or workers. So I am a big proponent of communication. You need to be communicating with the people in the household about what you're going through. Look for joint resolution. How can we resolve this? I'm going to be away for 3 nights this week. What should we do so that our kids don't feel neglected, so that you don't feel neglected? Communication. I have I do a lot of communication programs and workshops. It's super important on all levels, with your employees, with your boss, with your spouse, with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, whoever. Okay. Yeah. Communication.
That's amazing. Yeah. Great. That is so important. It's a key. I mean, everything. I have a small team, and I know sometimes I get anxious when I know I didn't communicate something to them, and I feel like I'm kind of leaving them on their own to figure things out. And I don't like that feeling, because I've been the person that's like lacking the leadership. Okay, I guess I got to figure it out. So now that I'm a leader, I'm always thinking about not putting someone in that position, because I know how it feels, right?
Big skill you need to be a good leader. Listening. The listening skill. To be a good leader. What do they have to say about it? Maybe they have the remedy right there. Listen, ask, and listen. Yeah. It took me a long time to learn that, by the way, folks. I don't want to sit here and say I had this wisdom from day one. Okay.
Yeah. No, listening is great. It's a great skill for anybody. It's not only a business thing. Listen, and then also be kind. I know that's kind of sounds like it's coming out of left field, but one of my favorite people who's very vocal about entrepreneurship is Gary Vaynerchuk, and as boisterous of a personality as he has, says the number one thing is simply be kind. Not about trying to be better than this person or that person. Just be a good soul, be a good person. At the end of the day, it
does come back to you. And if it doesn't come back to you in exactly the financial way that you wanted, you still end up feeling good about yourself. The reward may not be in the dollar, but the reward is in the internal.
Yeah. And the people, a lot of times there are folks that have dollars without the feeling of connection and relationships, because they don't have those. So I definitely know I would, yes, I'd love to build that financial successful situation for my daughter and future family as that may grow. But at the end of the day, if it's just stacks of cash with no personal connections, it really has no value to you.
There's far too many people out there who are in that mode that you just suggested. And I think with this COVID situation that's going on, it's going to change a lot of that. People are starting to reflect and think about, what do I have here? Is that all there is? Yeah.
The word is value. But value is like, you can associate, I can associate value to specific things, but you can't really put a value in. There's a priceless value on a real true connection with your family, with your children. Someone who's got a 20-year-old child that calls them up on the phone multiple times a week, that's a gift that many people don't have.
Right.
So it's like there's value, because that relationship was really nurtured throughout that person's life for them to want to call their parent or their grandparent, right?
I want to reverse this issue, and I want to interview you someday as to how did you get so wise at such a young age? Really?
Well, I would love to do that. If you want to do that, I would love to. But just to speak on it quickly, reading and listening to podcasts from other people who are in positions where their mentorship roles, and they've been there, done that. And a lot of people are willing to give away either free advice, whether it's people like yourself, and I've learned a lot through the 47 now plus interviews I've done on my show, learning from my guests. Okay. But it's really being a sponge, and just some people are willing to help you out if you just ask for help and it's there. Or you can even go and pay for someone's webinar or whatever, and just
And you're listening, and you're taking the advice. You're listening. You're not just sitting there, I have all the answers. Look at me. I have my own podcast show. Look at me where I am at this age. No, you're listening.
Yeah. And applying. Listening and then applying.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And that part's the hard part too. I got a few more questions here to kind of wrap us up. We got maybe 5-10 more minutes here. Okay. We talk about that quarantine again, and we're still in the middle of the pandemic when we record this. So, what would you say is actually one positive takeaway from the whole quarantine situation?
Well, everything you read is about family ties, and recognizing that family is most important. Realigning your value system, realigning what you thought was so important. I think
Mm,
that's one of the things that's happening. Um, the ability to focus more. I don't think I would have been able to write my job searching book in 3.5 months had had other options, but I was stuck. Okay.
yeah,
So I really focused and put the energy to good use. So there's been some good takeaways.
yeah.
There's also been a lot of negatives and a lot of stress. It's caused a lot of stress on people. I get calls, and of course, the unemployment, the people who are unemployed. I got a call yesterday from somebody. The gentleman was running 3 restaurants that have closed down. That's what he's done his whole life. What does
Hmm.
he do now?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I told him, buy the book, go through the worksheets, and call me, and I'll give you a free counseling session. But go through the worksheets
Yeah,
first. Yeah.
right. And yeah, that's awesome. So that's the thing too. I mean, again, what can we learn from a tough situation? Well, we're all living through this thing together. Everyone's at
Right.
different levels. A guy who owns 3 restaurants and lost all three is going to be more devastated than someone who just needs to do school from home or something. And there's other,
Mhm.
but it's just I do feel that if we all, everyone listening to this and anyone who's not listening to this, took this advice, what good can we take from this crazy situation and how can we build on that? Because sometimes it takes these big shifts to actually get growth, right? So, like, whether it's physical health and like you have to, that's what you do when you're going to the gym, you're kind of breaking your body down to build up that muscle. Well, I wouldn't ever wake up and say, I hope we have a pandemic so we can learn a worldwide lesson, but I feel like we're really in that kind of the whole world got shaken up. So how can we really build some good things on it now? I mean, that's
Yeah,
all we
and
can
and I
do.
think it's individual, and a lot of individual thought needs to go into it. Collectively,
Yeah.
as a society, we have many factions pulling together, and then we have factions that are still pulling apart.
Mm,
So we need to embrace one another, the
right.
brotherhood, the kindness that you mentioned. We need to do more of that. I
Unity and
I beg, I beg my fellow citizens, my fellow Americans, my fellow world livers, to like people who live in the world, to do that. Please be kind to one another, embrace one another, be gentle with one another. Yeah,
amen to that. Yeah, we need unity and not division. And it's
that's
tough
right. We do.
during the political times we're in right now. It's like it's just, oh my gosh, so much division. We can't like this guy if we like this guy. Well, we can like things about both of them. We can dislike things about both of them. Let's just
Respect
like
each other's opinion. I have friends who don't believe
yeah.
as I do. Respect each other's
It,
opinion. That's
it's
all.
funny.
But don't.
We learned that in kindergarten. Yet
Yeah.
it's like our political leaders in this country don't. Both sides. I'm not even trying to say
Both.
anything here. Um, just don't handle things. There's like no class with politics anymore. It's really strange.
Mhm,
I mean, my
mhm,
daughter's going to grow up and probably not respect politicians' behavior because they don't have any class or grace at all. It's crazy.
mhm.
I don't
It
want to
is
go too
a
much into
crazy
this.
time. I know it's a crazy time. Okay, you had some other questions. You told
I
me you
do.
had a
This
whole
is a
list
big
of
one
questions, and
here.
I was kind of like intimidated at first.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
want this
what's
to be. This is a little bit of a curveball, but it's
uh-oh.
really just dig into your heart on this one. If you can be known for one thing, what would it be and why?
Wow, these are tough questions. I've done podcasts, TV interviews, and nobody hit me with that one. Um, I think it would be she wanted to make a difference with her fellow man. And they're not gender specific, but
Yeah.
I have loved the ability to counsel people on careers and jobs and life counseling. And I have and learned that companies cannot be successful unless they have the right staff, the right talent. So
Mhm.
my impact has been dualfold. I've helped corporate America, and I've helped individuals. I think it's making a difference to her fellow man, helping somebody to see the way. That's what I would like to know. Go to Donna. She'll help you find the way.
Yeah.
I have these group of supporters that are saying, what would Donna do? And I'm nope, nope. Okay. But what would Donna do in this situation? How
Mhm.
would I handle it? And often they'll call and say, well, what should we do? Or what should I do in this situation? So
Mhm.
being a helping hand.
And I'll say, and we've only had this hour together and a couple one conversation, a few emails. So I wouldn't say I know you on an extremely personal level by any means, but I can tell that you're actually building that so that, what you feel you would like to be known for or make a dent in the universe, as I think Steve Jobs said was his goal, was just to make a dent in the universe. You're doing it. So I just want someone to tell you, take a deep breath right now and just reflect and realize, I know you're not looking for the pat on the back, but it's incredible what you've done over the many years and how you've turned around adversity and really built on it and really are helping people who are going through some tough things yourself. Here's my last question for you, and it goes right back to our mission statement, which is to inspire our audience to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. What would you tell them?
Wow. Each person is different. They're going to hear different things with this answer, I think. Again, I think the important thing, and I'm going to be a little repetitive here, is they need to identify what their real goals are. To follow somebody else's dream, to look at somebody on television or your neighbor and want to emulate what they've done with their life, that's the wrong path. What do you really want out of life? What do you really need out of life? And follow that path. How do you go about it? And you use the word implement. What's the path to implement? What do I have to do here? Because anybody, and I really believe this, anybody can create a good life for themselves. It's their definition of what's a good life. What does that mean?
Right. How do you solve for something if you haven't identified what you're looking for? You wouldn't even know what it looked like. It could walk right in front of you, but you haven't identified that as the goal. So sometimes people are actually pretty close to their goal and they don't know because they haven't really written it down or identified it. I actually have suffered that myself, where if I'm not super crystal clear about something, I don't know what it feels and looks like if I didn't get that specific. So another mentor said, get so specific where you're down to like the fraction of the penny, that if it's a monetary goal, or exactly what it physically looks like if it's a physical thing you're going to.
Which way is your compass pointing? Which way is your compass pointing, and why is it pointing that way? And then how do you follow that path to get there? It's not really that difficult. It takes time and it takes self-reflection. And by the way, one more thing, not everybody can do it on their own. You and I may be the profiles who can sit and reflect. People need help. There's nothing wrong with asking a former coworker, a boss, a relative, help me out here to identify, what do you think I'm all about? What do you think my goals are? And are they on the right track?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know how to put this into words, but it's like, it's okay to seek help. Let your guard down maybe a little bit. Some people maybe feel that's a vulnerable place, like if they're a big, tough business person that has this ego. But if to really improve and get better, asking help is okay. Like asking someone to maybe even just look at your business plan before you do it. If you're a solopreneur and you're the only one who saw your business plan, that's tough. You don't know if it's actually what's the checks and balances. So I think that's incredible insight. This whole interview is incredible. I'm going to go back.
Thank you.
Many times I do. I every guest that's been on my show, if they're listening right now, I do go back and listen to them, and I actually learn things from myself, which is kind of cool, and from my guests. And I'm already excited to go back with my notes because I know there's probably things I've missed. And here's the two awesome quotes, and I'm excited to put this out when I do the social media blast for this. But the two quotes I love are, "You are what you think you are." Totally true. And then also competence and how capable you are equals your confidence. Those are two tremendous things. Identify your goals and have a plan. So guys, check out Donna Cornell at Donna Cornell, CORNELL.com. Connect with her on LinkedIn. Check her out on Facebook. I am Donna Cornell is what you would search. Anything you would like to say, Donna, as we're saying goodbye to the audience?
Well, at first, I do want to thank you for the opportunity because it gets my message out. And that's the best thing that can happen, is for me to get the message out that you are what you think you are. You can if you want to. I always say I'm an ordinary woman. I created an extraordinary life. And if I can do it, you can do it.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
I love you guys, and thank you so much for tuning in. Check out more show notes and information on each episode at mikeduppodcast.com. MIKED uppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.